This is the Recruitment Rollercoaster podcast. My name is Hisham Azuz. Today I'm in Manchester. I'm joined by Kyle Winterbottom, who is an associate director for Lawrence Harvey. And for those that can't see, he's in a checkered short sleeve shirt and a very flowery top. So I think let's start there, mate. Why the hell are you in this attire, mate?
Yeah, great question, mate. So it was off the back of a really cool incentive that we decided to set to Blackpool, kind of at the back end of H1, so a H2 incentive. And you picked to interview me on the day that we're doing the sales day that goes with that. So
is this the clubber that you're going to be wearing in Blackpool?
Absolutely not, mate. Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah. I mean, look, I've got my flip flops on. So
flip-flops on, all sorts, mate. Well, look, thank you for joining me, mate.
No problem.
Looking forward to this. And as I was just saying, look, where I always like to start, how did Kyle enter the world of recruitment, mate? Talk to me.
I guess it's probably very similar to a lot of people, mate, to be honest with you. So I'd lived out in the US and played football out there on a scholarship.
Okay.
Kind of did an MBA.
Whereabouts in what state?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay. One of my close friends did that,
right.
And he did it in I can't remember. That was a 9.
Yeah.
But he had that experience.
Yeah. So I just went over there on like a 2-year program to get a master's degree. Did that. Played football for 2 years. Came out of there.
What was the level like?
Good. Football wise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good, mate. We had some. I mean, probably shouldn't say this because it's probably against some regulations, but like ex England and
really?
Spain, like under 18 players and captains, and
because obviously it's still very much you still got to do your educate, like that's still just important.
Yeah, you're a student athlete.
Yeah. That's the thing. Okay.
Yeah.
What position did you play?
Centre half.
I thought so.
Yeah. I started out back in the day, mate, as a centre forward, and I just got bigger and slower. So yeah.
Nice, mate. So did you get any opportunity in the UK to play football or anything like that, or because that's normally the path, right? Or even in America?
Yeah. So very early on. Very early on, so like age 10, and I was kind of in and around the scene of a few local kind of pro clubs.
What clubs, mate?
Mainly Man United. But it was a very brief stint, more in the kind of, I guess, trialing type of environment.
It's funny you say that. We were talking, I was in, when I was last working in the Hunted offices, I was having a chat with Joe Mellor there, and we were just talking about football and stuff, and we were saying how, like, you will always hear someone say, yeah, when I was 8 years old, I had trials at United or Blackburn or Bolton. Yeah. It's just so easy to hear that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you actually have trials at United, mate?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fair enough.
Yeah, played in a few games for them and stuff, but in an unofficial like off-season capacity.
Yeah, sure.
That didn't work out, not a sub story.
So football didn't happen?
Football didn't happen. Age 12, I had 4 operations to remove a kidney. So
really?
Yeah, that was why that didn't happen. That's what I tell everyone.
You went to America, so still, and how old were you at that point?
So I finished university in England, went over to America, so I'd been 21. So,
oh, wow, okay.
So I did 2 years there.
So really gave it a go?
Yeah.
In terms of, yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fully committed. And then was there a point where you're like, actually, it's not going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, look, when you're playing over there, you're a student first, you're an athlete second. It's just you play football to pay your way, basically. So the university effectively pays for your studies, but over there, it was a smaller private school, so the tuition fees were pretty expensive. So I got the bulk of that paid for, which was good. Set me in good stead. And then I went into. I guess I was trying to find a job that would sponsor me for a visa, because that's a big issue out there. Obviously, no experience, so I went into one of these pyramid type schemes. Like it was B2B, so selling. I guess we were an outsourced sales office for Staples, the office suppliers. Yeah. So it was like territorial based.
Was it door knocking?
Yeah, just walk.
My mate did this, but was selling lawnmowers. Yeah, that's mad.
So it was a steep learning curve, mate. But I think
that must be difficult.
Obviously, you're just walking into businesses, mate, with you had a script that you'd learned and you just set off going. It was really old school. So you had a catalogue, you had to take the order there and then. It was no appointments, so it was sales 101.
Yeah.
I'm not coming back type of thing. We've got a promotion and all that kind of jazz. And I did really, really, really well at that. I earned a lot of money at a very young age.
Really?
And,
Why do you think you did well?
Probably because of the accent, mate. If I'm honest.
Really?
It was in the south of the US with a young British lad with an accent, kind of coming in selling paper and pens and printers that you need really. So
that's such a good grounding, though.
Absolutely.
In terms of obviously where you ended up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you did that, and then what? You ended up coming back to the UK. Yeah,
I came back home. So it got to the point where I guess I was working in a capacity where you're like on an extension of your student visa, to gain work experience, if you will. And then it came time for them to sponsor me, and there was a whole host of trouble with kind of that, because I guess the US immigration, as you're probably aware, you've got to justify why you're giving a job to a British person when there's a very capable American person there to do it. So decided to pack up and come back home. And I guess how I got into recruitment was I was applying for sales roles. I thought,
sales experience,
I'd done really well in a sales role out there. Was just applying like sales type roles. I actually spoke to a rec who I thought I was interviewing for.
Do you know how many times people said this?
I mean, so at the end of the conversation, I was kind of like, okay, and he was like, right, I'm going to put you to a few of our clients, and I was like,
what? Not interviewing for
you? What is this?
That's actually mad. That how often that happens. Okay, so then and then I'm assuming interviewed a few places, and then you ended up at the renowned SThree. Yeah. And what year was this? If you remember? 2011, yeah, and that was in Manchester.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. And then just to sort of set the scene then, so you worked there for how many years?
SThree in total was about 4.5 years.
4.5 years.
Yeah.
And during that period of time, obviously before that, you obviously didn't just stay in the UK. Is that right? You also went to Dubai.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then after Dubai, you went to America. Yeah, again.
Yeah.
And then after America, you came back to the UK.
Yep.
And then obviously we're at this point. Yeah. Okay, mate. Well, I'm looking forward to unpacking this, mate.
Yeah, I'm sure you are.
So, cool. So, 4.5 years at SThree. I think obviously you said before, so that was all contract, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So, where I always like to just get people to start is because is the sort of first 12 months and how that was, just because my own experience was really difficult. I'm sure now when you've managed people, that is a real difficult period.
Yep.
I mean, I guess for you, you've been you would have had that experience of being punched in the mouth face to face, which would have helped, right?
A few staplers thrown at me.
Yeah, exactly. Getting that rejection, that must have helped. But how were your first 12 months, mate, in the sort of SThree Manchester environment?
Initially, really tough. I think obviously I'd come from a direct sales role where you're used to doing 4 or 5 sales a day to an environment where it's like, you're expected to do 1 or 2 deals a month.
Yeah.
So the pace of it was...
That's interesting, yeah.
To me, was really slow,
which
which now, I guess is quite interesting, because obviously contract is, in recruitment terms, typically fast-paced.
More faster-paced, yeah.
But to be honest with you, I struggled first.
What was the market?
So BI contracts, pretty much. Mainly Oracle technologies.
Okay.
So I think I was massively lucky because I started working at SThree for Computer Futures. So obviously their tech brand, and there was a great management and leadership team there, but there was a few like serious heavy hitters.
Really, really good.
Doing 10, 12, 14, 15 grand a week, like contract billers, that you're just kind of sitting, listening to, and just picking up like whatever you get hold of, really.
Yeah.
So
okay, so why was it tough? What did you find? So you mentioned about the pace. That obviously that was an adjustment, but why did you find it so tough early on?
I think one of the biggest things for me, obviously, I'd had 18 months sales experience, just being able to influence people face to face, and now you're trying to do it over the phone. And I guess that was a reservation when I interviewed. They were kind of saying to me, you're used to being in front of people. Do you think that'll kind of put you at a disadvantage?
Yeah.
And, at the time I was like, I'm
cool.
Yeah, I've got it. I'll do this. So, but I think first 6 months I really struggled. I didn't do a deal till month 6.
Really?
Yeah. and I was just, you know, I was one of them. I was working. I was typically up there for top of the call times, top of the KPI stats,
but nothing was coming off.
And nothing was coming off. And I think I remember to this day, my manager was just kind of saying, "Look, just be patient. Like you're doing the right things.
That's interesting.
It'll happen." And we had a slight switch in market, kind of month 4 or 5, and then month 6 hit, and did my first deal, and then it was like deal.
Yeah.
So I think the first 6 months were super tough. Like there were times where I was like,
thinking about quitting.
I don't think this is for me.
Why did you continue then?
I think that's just me, mate. That's my person. I love to win, and I hate being defeated. So
clearly, obviously competitive.
Yeah, I think it was certainly that element of it for me, but it was more self-competitive. You know, I kind of couldn't, probably a pride thing really. Like I didn't want to kind of let myself down by walking away.
But I guess it's really interesting you say that around your was it your manager that said, "Kyle, keep doing what you're doing. It's the right activity. You're putting in the right work ethic, it'll pay off." Because I got that advice as well. So I mean I did my first deal in 3 months, but I had a shit first year, mate. Like I didn't bill a lot at all, but he kept saying to me, "He should keep doing what you're doing, it'll pay off, blah blah blah," and you will sort of experience a bit of a tipping point where things just start to click. So do you think that helped in terms of knowing that the people around you said, "Carl, you are doing the right things, you are doing the right activities," that you knew that I'm sure that helped you believe that it is going to happen or whatever, and get through it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, look, I'd never done recruitment before, so I was just listening to what people were telling me.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think, you know, naturally SThree is an environment where there's a load of good people and a lot of people make it, and there's some that don't. And it's, you know, so naturally I was kind of like, you know, it's not quite clicking for me here. So there's a lot of concern on that front, but I think, you know, it was, obviously it was nice to hear, you know, especially when there's members of the team, mate, like literally smashing in 8, 9 contract deals a month, you know, and you're kind of sat there going, oh God, you know, this is just soul destroying. But you know, obviously it was nice to.
But ended up that first year doing okay.
Yeah, so I ended up going on the kind of incentive trip as like from, they used to run the competitions in like leagues, you know, so Budapest, in December. It was freezing, but yeah, no, it was good. So I guess month 6 to, you know, month 12, it kind of just snowballed. Solid. And I kind of came into to year 2 with, you know, about a 4 or 5k contract.
Okay.
You know.
So before we move on very quickly, what I'd love to just get your thoughts on through that experience. So my experience is perm recruitment, right? But just quickly before we move on, thinking people listening right now who are early on in their contract recruitment career, looking back now, what do you think? So it took obviously that 6-month period of you obviously having the activity and these types of things, which obviously is part of the game, but any advice around that someone that's early on, should they be really doubling down on the I don't know, getting jobs in, building the right relationships, or I don't know, because I don't really understand the complete nuances in the contract recruitment, might be a bit different. Like, any advice?
Look, I think I was really lucky in that the setup that we had at SThree was, you know, we had a super slick process.
Really?
So for us, you know, I remember our ratios in terms of, you know, jobs pulled to jobs placed, you know, we categorised the jobs. Yeah, it was stupidly high. Yeah. And I think that was just down to a really slick process, you know, so we had to have the job signed off by management and all that type of stuff. I think that, you know, to a lot of people that probably sounds like, geez, that's a bit on top, but I think that allowed us to you know that we could I could go and pull, you know, a job a month. That was my mindset. If I can go and pull a couple of jobs a month, I'm probably going to fill them, you know. So whereas, you know, I know from my own experience, there's sometimes where your ratios are much higher than that. You know, you might need to go and pull 8, 10 jobs a month to do a couple of deals.
Well, I guess that process enabled you to work the right jobs, right?
Absolutely.
If you pulled a job and then your manager's like, nah, Carl, like, they haven't given this information, they're not committed.
Exactly.
So that whole process then means that, the time that you're spending, So then I guess, so just from what I'm understanding, sitting down with contract recruiters and stuff, like, should people be really doubling down on pulling jobs? Because I feel like, from what I understand, sitting down with people is the obviously candidate pieces, I don't want to say completely not easy, but like it's easier. Yeah. Is it the client piece that you really want to try and double down on?
It's definitely the client piece, and I think it's kind of relationships, and I guess when you get the when you get the chance to deliver on a job, deliver on it.
Yeah.
Because I think my experience now, I've done some quite a lot of perm stuff over more recent years, and I think what I've realised is that typically, and this is a generalisation, but typically hiring managers that are hiring contractors, they're not really that bothered where they get them from. It's kind of like who can provide.
And is that because because like they need them?
It's definitely an urgency thing.
Yeah.
So for me, I say to the guys here all the time on the contract front, it's like, if you get a job, it's can you provide the best candidates at a competitive rate in a very quick time frame, and if you can cover those boxes, whether they like you or not, they're probably going to use you, which is obviously massively different to the perm piece. Yeah,
okay. Interesting. So, so got through that, had a solid sort of end of your first year, and then so when did you go to Dubai then?
2014.
Okay, so you had a solid period in Manchester, and what was like the typical route? Was it just contract biller, and then did you manage anyone by the time you left, or did you get senior consultant? How did that all go?
So I progressed through the ranks up to senior and all that type of stuff, and I think what SThree are really good at is allowing you to do the job that you want before you actually get there, if that makes sense. So some people look at that as a disadvantage, but for me that was kind of like a chance to prove myself.
So what did that mean? What did you get the chance to do?
So obviously you move through the ranks in terms of your title, and naturally that comes with pay increases and all that type of stuff, but then the chance to like really run and manage a team without having the title of being a team manager. So
they give you those extra responsibilities.
Yeah, so I remember the year that I moved to Dubai, we'd come back in the January, and we were looking to kind of build a new team, and they wanted to trust me with that. So we had 4 trainees that had started. We said, look, we'll give you them. I want you to run at this, go hell for leather. I guess it was only a month or so later that I had the conversation about moving to Dubai. So, but I still kind of theoretically, if you like, managed or mentored those 4 people,
which would obviously help and put you in good stead when you went to Dubai.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so 2 things then before we talk about your sort of journey moving abroad and stuff like that. First one is the business development piece. So we're just talking about it there. Most common thing I get asked to ask people about. So during that period, and I guess you can touch on throughout your career, right? So particularly obviously in the contract world, as you said, pulling jobs, clients, really important. How did you get better at that, and any advice around that? Because that's definitely the most difficult part that a lot of people find.
Yeah, I think looking back on it now as a contract recruiter, for me it was just I was probably very traditional in the sense that for me it was just numbers. Yeah, I was just confident that I could make enough calls to get enough clients on the phone, and once I got them on the phone, I was half decent enough to get something out of that call. So for me, it was just work ethic. But I think that's when we spoke last week.
Obviously, that's definitely changed recently, right?
100%. Yeah, the whole work smart, not hard piece. Obviously, still need to work hard. But, I think it's certainly changed, and even up until really joining Lawrence Harvey, I was still always of that kind of mentality. You see things about personal branding and social media and the marketing piece, and I was just kind of like, I get that, but for me, I could just pick up the phone, and and that was always just the kind of way it was for me. But I guess we've had probably more success than I've ever had, really. From a business development piece over the last 18 months by changing the approach. So,
all right, let's just talk about that now then.
Okay.
What have you changed? So when did you realise mentally, like, hang on a minute, Kyle in Manchester 2012, 13 or whatever, just smashing the phones, is not proven as successful? Like, what, like, do you know what I mean? Because that must have been difficult to accept that.
Yeah. I think that had come with experience, mate, of experiencing different cultures, and going to Dubai, it was massively relationship driven. You could be the best recruiter in the world, the best BDA in the world, but if you didn't get out in front of them, it was a bit of a struggle. Yeah. Then I went to the US, where it was very much more of a search environment, so them processes were really, really slow. So I guess I'd had a kind of a bit of a mixed bag when it comes to the type of roles that I was working, the sectors that I was working
and different
in.
types of approaches, different types how people like you to approach them, stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think when I started at Lawrence Harvey, for me, it was just like, look, I know that I can do some damage when I get on the phone, because that's BD has always really been my strength.
Yeah.
Probably because I'm a contract recruiter by trade. So, but I guess I was just kind of sitting thinking about what's really going to allow me to get more people on the phone, rather than just calling through switchboards. Because we started here, it was in pretty much a new market for the business, into a brand new office, a new geography. We'd had a few people in London working up here, but it was
pretty cold.
No
so
coverage.
It's mapping out the market, switchboards.
Absolutely.
Hi there, my name's John. Get through. Actually, my name's Kyle. Sorry about that. I can help. This is what I do. All that typical stuff.
Yeah. So it was. I guess I'm very methodical in my approach. I need to be able to see, right, okay, who's the target client? Who's the hiring manager in that client?
Yeah.
Right.
So map it all out.
Map it all out, and then it was just like, right, what's going to allow me to get them on the phone? And I think we're lucky here. We've got a wicked marketing team, and they do a lot of events. So they were kind of leaning on me a little bit, saying, look, go and see what's out and about there from an event perspective. Is there something that you can speak to these people about? And I kind of just ran with that idea. I thought, all right, it's a different approach. I'll give it a go, see what happens. And lo and behold, it kind of worked. And there were a lot more clients answering the phone, clients coming to me saying,
So what was the actual experience? Because you must have been like, hey, like what?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? What is it? So literally, the great thing about that is obviously it enabled you to stay on the phone, but that it was received totally different. She wasn't talking about jobs.
Yeah, it's just the approach, mate. So it's just it was a non-recruitment related call, but kind of naturally with anything, I knew that if I could get these people on the phone, I was speaking to them about how we could add value by putting an event on that might not, that might be lacking in the space, and then naturally most of the time. You're on the phone with them for 30, 45 minutes talking about who you are, what you do.
Yeah.
I'd say 7 out of 10 calls that I were making, I was getting, actually, we're looking for this. Can you help? And I was like, yeah, look, well, I wanted to come and meet you anyway to speak about the event. Let's just wrap it all up there. And they was like, cool.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of like, oh, God, I've been doing this wrong for the last 6 years. So,
That's mad.
Yeah.
So, okay, just to finalise that, because I think a lot of people may be thinking, well, I'm a recruiter, like I'm not a fucking events creator, I'm not creative, all these things, right? So like these types of phone calls, it's not rocket science, it pretty much involved the typical type of approach, but then you're talking about sort of the event or an event idea that you may have. Are you open to getting involved? Mm-hmm. This is why you're thinking about starting it, blah, blah, blah. And then just using that whole conversation to maybe at some point, but I'm assuming you don't go with the intention of giving them a sales pitch of what Lawrence Harvey do. That just sort of can happen quite naturally. Do you know what I mean? But like, how difficult was it? Because some people might be listening and going, that would be a bit weird calling up people and talking about events. You know what I mean? I don't think it would be personally, but
I think it's funny you asked that question, because when I sit with our head of marketing and we're talking about, this, and I guess we've created a bit of a community here around this event series that's snowballed it into something bigger than I ever thought it would. Yeah. And I guess for me that just has come a little bit natural. I guess I'm still a little bit unsure of what the kind of barriers are for other people, but it was very much a case of, look, here's who Lawrence Harvey is, here's what I'm doing, here's my role in the business, and here's the reason that I'm calling you. And it's at that point that it was like, we want to put an event on. We're big in the event space as a recruitment business, but to be honest with you, we don't just want to put something on for the sake of it.
Yeah, we actually want to try and give some value.
Want to add something back, so what do you feel is missing? And then, I'd kind of take all the feedback from that call and roll it into the next. I've just spoke to John Smith at Such a Body, and he said this, what do you think about that? Yeah, I'd agree. And then that concept of, I guess we've created the data leaders of the North community that came off the back of, there's not a great deal in terms of an intimate round table type of event. There's a load of meetups and a load of tech type stuff, but from a leadership perspective, people that head up data or data science functions, I've got to travel to London, it's 2 days out of the office, it's an expense for the train and the hotel, and so we kind of just roll with it and put it on. And
no, so I think that anyone listening, I think look, if you're good on the phone, which clearly you will be, if you're good at building relationships, like back yourself and do it. You'll learn through the process, which you clearly did. Use what you've done in terms of the typical BD that you've done, and what's the worst that can happen, right? Like, do you know what I mean?
I think if I look back over everything, throughout all the different types of recruitment I've done in terms of the different roles, the different sectors, the thing that's allowed the most success has been meeting people.
Meeting people, yeah.
That's at SThree. They were big on that. Because obviously you want to try and wrap good contract clients up. So it's get in front of them. If you're placing with them, go and take them out for a lunch or whatever the case may be. And like when I started here, it was very much a case of, well, let me come and meet you. We're going to talk about the event. And then naturally, one of the biggest challenges they have is talent, because it's such a talent short market. So they start asking you for advice, and before you know it, you're pretty much ingrained in their business somewhat, really.
No, I really like that. Okay, cool. So the other thing that I just wanted to touch on, which I'm always curious about, because I've had a few people obviously worked at SThree and stuff, and you said there at the beginning around like you could see like you was really exposed to some like big hitters, right? What were the typical things that you saw in these people that sort of you think enabled them to, looking back now or whatever, like what were some of the common things that you noticed in them that enabled them to absolutely kill it? Because I'm sure it would still work now or have an impact now.
Yeah, I think back in the SThree days, I think about all the people that were really big billers that I was lucky enough to learn from. I think, to be honest with you, it was work ethic.
Really?
It was just work ethic and tenacity, and there was people in there that were running 14, 15 grand a week GP contract books that were still there at 9 o'clock at night.
Really?
Just chasing down leads and specking in CVs, and it was just I guess they created a bit of culture like that. SThree, it was relentless for success,
just really high standards.
But it just it was an environment where it was just very successful, and I think that was a learning curve for me when I left SThree.
Yeah.
Because I think you come accustomed to a certain way of doing things, and you're just like, oh, this is what recruitment is. And you leave, and you're like, shit, it's not like this everywhere else, So
So just pure relentless work ethic.
I mean, look, naturally, there's some people that are much better on the phone than others, and other people make up for that by putting in more numbers and more hours. But I'd say, the work ethic piece was really instilled in everyone. Everyone that was successful were in earlier, leaving later, and those were the people that were smashing in a number of deals a month and were, making an absolute ton of money. So, do
you think that's the recipe for success now?
I mean, look, there's for me, there's no denying the fact that, you're never going to get away from that. The harder you work, the more you do, the more you're going to get out. But I think the approach has changed. And I think society has changed. I guess
that's not really flexible working, mate, or work-life balance, mate.
No. I mean, look, we're some of the things that we do now in this business. Honestly, I laugh about it now to my boss, because I'm just like, in mine and his day, never would that have happened. We might run little incentives to say, right, if we do this at 4 o'clock, we're going to nip downstairs and have a table tennis competition. And at SThree, like if you'd have said that middle of the working day, you'd have probably got beaten with a meat and run stick. So I guess it's changed. But I think the world's changed. Nowadays, I don't think, there was, when I was, recruiting contracts, trying to fill contract jobs, staying there till 9, 10 at night sometimes, I'd still be sending CVs and I'd be getting replies from my clients. I think that's changed. I don't think clients are working till that time. I think everyone's a bit more relaxed about that stuff now.
No, it's interesting. And I think, for me, at the end of the day, like, that doesn't mean that work ethic isn't required and all that. Do you know what I mean? Like, it obviously it does have a bit of a sort of stigma attached to it a bit now, like, oh, you're always working, all that. But I think at the end of the day, like, work ethic is still so important. Like, it's still so important. You just can't expect the sort of success that you do want without putting in the hard work.
No, of course not.
Do you know what I mean? I think that's obviously the challenge with it, is because we're so well connected now. It's so easy to see, oh, Carl's always on holiday and all that, but you don't see the stuff that led to that. Do you know what I mean? That's the thing now, where obviously you was exposed to these really big hitters, and you saw what they were putting in. Do you know what I mean? Whereas now, I think that's why I personally really enjoy like the documentary, like the Man City documentary and stuff like that, because it's so easy to look at just take football for example. Kyle, the football player, centre back for Man City. Oh, he's got it all right, and he's getting paid loads of money. Blah blah blah. But you don't see all of the work that goes behind that. Do you know what I mean? Okay, mate. So, what I'd love to dive into. So, Dubai. What was that like?
I absolutely loved it.
Really?
From a lifestyle perspective, yeah. I think in hindsight, we probably made a bit of a rash decision leaving. But I think that was connected to the personal, to the professional side of things, if I'm honest with you. There's a load of really good people out in Dubai making an absolute ton of money. But it's very relaxed. I'd say, if you look at all of the big recruitment businesses across the world, their Middle Eastern operations aren't the ones that are making them the top dollar. You know what I mean? It's almost like, in my opinion, that people put a business and an office there to say we've got a presence in the Middle East.
Really?
So and typically the outfits there are a bit smaller and stuff. So professionally, I found it a bit of a challenge, especially going
because of what you was used to.
Yeah, what you're used to, and it was the first time really that I'd been, you're speaking to clients and candidates that, English isn't the first language. I remember, an hilarious story. So I'd come back, I'd come back for the summer once, and I was spending a week in the Manchester office, but I was working, just working like Dubai hours, and I went in there and I was finalising putting an Algerian candidate into
half Algerian, mate.
Algerian candidate into Qatar or something like that, whatever. And because you're having to speak in broken English, and I'm basically shouting down the phone, and my old director's kind of looking at me with a big frown on his face, going, "Mate, that sounds like hard work." And it was just like, it was completely different. So I think professionally, it was good, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it, and we did really well, but I think it was, most people are there for the lifestyle, whereas if you go to New York, no one goes to New York to have a jolly up, they're there because they're there to graft. Because
so how long was you in Dubai for?
Just over 2 years.
2 years. Mm-hmm. So how would you, because people thinking about going to Dubai, doing recruitment, what should they be thinking about then?
I'd say getting into the right business is massively important out there. I mean, look, everyone out there is doing well, and I guess the difference for me was I'd gone from working, a northwestern BI market where literally my market was mapped on postcodes to, right, okay, we're SThree, Dubai, but we've got the whole of the Middle East, so we were placing candidates into pretty much every country out there. So the UAE, Oman, Qatar, Kuwait, Iraq. So it had gone from this little thing to this big thing, and I think that was a challenge for me at first, because it was kind of like,
where do you start? Where do you start?
And I'm a massive believer that you more is not always better.
Yeah, for sure.
I quite like the fact that I've got a finite list of clients, because you kind of know you either
can really double down on it.
You can double down on it, and you either make a success of them or you fail. It's kind of as simple as that. Whereas in Dubai, you're kind of like, there's so much to go at. Which country do you start in? Why do you start there? So that was difficult. But personally, lifestyle wise, it was unbelievable.
Yeah, had a bit of a jolly up there.
Yeah, absolutely. Mate. Pushed it. Yeah.
What? Obviously, so my dad's Algerian. So like, I've been to Algeria loads. So I've got a sort of cool perspective of that type of culture. Yeah. Obviously, a lot of people might be listening. Like, what is it actually like to live there? Do you know what I mean? As a English northern lad. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? What's the actual culture like to there? So
look, I think. People that have never visited or don't know much about Dubai or the Middle East, I think they kind of think, they kind of think what they hear and see in the newspapers.
Like, can't go out on the streets, drink.
You can't drink. You can't do this. You can't do that. And honestly, I've never drunk as much in my life as I did when I was in Dubai, because that was just the lifestyle. Everyone out there is an expat. I think the population of the UAE is something stupid like 80% expat.
Really,
and I'd say a large majority of that is British or European or American. So naturally, if they're catering to so many expats, they've got to take on board their culture. So it was just, that was the way it was. And I think it's slightly different from a lifestyle perspective to New York, because you know, when you go to Dubai, everyone's an expat. You know, no one's from Dubai. You kind of, you're not forced to make friends, but you're kind of friends with the people that you work with, and your groups and your circles just grow naturally because it's almost like everyone's really looking for people to kind of knock around with.
Okay.
Whereas when we went to New York, it was, you know, we went there, but everyone's already lives there. They've got their own lives. They're not looking to make friends and, you know, stuff like that.
So why did you go to New York?
So I'd left SThree and moved to another business, which was a complete startup, and I loved that experience. You know, literally kind of like with my boss at the time, like finding the offices, buying all the equipment and stuff, and building something that was brand new. That part of the business got sold off, so effectively I got made redundant. They shut down the office, and I was kind of sat there. I had a few conversations around other opportunities in Dubai. By this time, I was at a certain level, and naturally, you know, I guess the volume of those opportunities was relatively slim. I was getting a lot of interest from businesses in the UK looking to open in Dubai. Like, would you start something for us? Which I was all for, but I kind of just, I don't know, I was hearing an awful lot of really good stories coming out of the US. You know, friends I'd worked
what year
with. What year was this? 2016.
Okay, that's interesting. So I think you're definitely hearing a lot more now, aren't you?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So it's a bit early on the sort of bandwagon, you could say.
Yeah. But I was hearing a load of good stories. People out there making good money. You know, it was starting to, I guess, kind of, you know, build a little bit of momentum. People speaking about it's the best recruitment market in the world. Naturally the size of the country, the amount of volume, the fees are, you know, miles bigger, and all that type of stuff. So I kind of think there wasn't a great deal going on in Dubai, if I'm honest. It kind of felt like it was more of a lifestyle place than it was. And I kind of felt that I was at a part in my career where I'd done really well at SThree. I'd left. I took a massive leap of faith by leaving and went into something that I absolutely loved. But you know, that they kind of sold that, which wasn't ideal for me really. But I was kind of looking around and I thought, right, I'm at a stage in my career where I probably need to be career focused rather than lifestyle focused.
Yeah, sure.
And I kind of, if I'm honest, I kind of felt like I had a bit of unfinished business with the US, having been, you know, turfed out for not having a visa earlier in my life. So I think there was always a bit of like a romance thing with going back.
So what did you go there to do?
So I went over there and worked in for a business that basically it's not strictly exec search, but it's that model.
So
basically
more headhunting.
More headhunting, into the life sciences sector, but mainly around kind of supply chain to life sciences. So,
okay, and then how long did you do that for?
I was there about a year.
Okay. And obviously you were saying before, so you went at this point. You obviously had a missus.
A wife, yeah.
A wife, sorry.
Yeah. I had a wife before I went to Dubai.
Really?
That's another story for another time.
So I had a wife at this point, and you said that she actually fell pregnant as you went over to. Or you found out she was pregnant? Yeah,
so the day we were flying back from Dubai to the UK to kind of come home to get our visas and stuff, it was, we found out she was pregnant, and, you know, hindsight probably should tell us that we probably should have reevaluated, but I think, you know, it was one of them. It was like, you know, what's the worst that can happen? All our stuff was in a shipping container anyway. So
you just thought, you know what, let's just go over there, see what happens.
We'll go over there, try it. You know, we never went over there with the intention of we're going to be back in 12 months.
Sure.
But I think, you know, the reality is that we went out there the whole time we was there, she was pregnant. So we never really experienced the New York lifestyle per se. Obviously I was out of the house 12 hours a day. Felt bad she sat on her own. You know, she made a few friends locally, but they worked. So I think she was, you know, spent a lot of time on her own, which I felt a bit guilty about.
How did you deal with that? Because that's tough. Do you know what I mean? Like, you working, going home, you would have been thinking about work, but then you had to be present with the missus because, like, that's her quality time with you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It was difficult, but I think it's one of them things at the time you don't really think about it too much. You know, we tried to get her involved. It was a balancing act really, because naturally, you know, a lot of people that go out there, a lot of the Brits were young and single. I say young, my age, but they were single. They were living the life.
What was you doing, mate? You weren't living the life.
Let's avoid that question. No, but you know what I mean. It was kind of like I had a wife to go home to, and she was pregnant, and we tried to get her involved. You know, so if there was like company nights out, she was open to that, but she was pregnant, and the further along she got, it got harder, and you know, and stuff like that. So, and then obviously we had the baby out there, so he's got an American passport, which will be useful later in life, I'm sure. But we had the baby, and then again, you know, I had a couple of weeks off paternity leave. I was out of the house, you know, 12 hours a day, and she was, you know, stuck with the newborn, our first child, kind of like, you know, a bit bored really. And I think the conversation went a little something like, you know, she was like, when the leash runs out on this place, let's think about going home. And I remember just thinking, well, we're paying like $4,000 a month for this place. Like, why would we wait another 6 months? If you want to go home, you know, let's do it. So I had to have a pretty, you know, awkward conversation with my boss at the time around like, look, it's just, you know, personally, it's not working out for me and the wife, and that was that.
Yeah.
But, you know, really enjoyed that business. Some really cool people in it, to be fair, and they do really well. So,
what? Just on that point before we move on, mate, because I think obviously a lot of people are listening. If you got however many years experience in recruitment, like you're 100% getting absolutely spammed by Rex saying go to America, New York, live the New York life, especially if you're single, all that stuff, right? Like, obviously you mentioned about the wife. Totally get that. It must have been fucking difficult. Clearly it was. But what about socially as well? Because I think that's something you've got to really consider, isn't it? Like, so for me, when I moved up to London, I had a really solid friendship network at home, and moving to London, I actually luckily moved up with one friend, which massively helped. But even I think for me, what I found is like what must be strange. I don't know if you can relate to this. Is like I can imagine even more so in New York, but like in London, obviously it's so busy. There's so many people. Like you're surrounded by so many people every single day, but you can feel fucking lonely.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It's like the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
It's like you're surrounded by all these people, you go to work, you see loads of people, you work with people, and then like you get home and it's like, this is weird.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, how was it socially like? Was that difficult in terms of like friends and stuff like that?
It was a little. I think not so much for me, because I think there was a number of we had quite a diverse cultural office, really. So there were a lot of people in our office that were over there on their own.
Really?
You know, so that wasn't too bad. I think obviously, you know, it's just the way it works over there. You know, people are working late and then they're going having beers and they're coming in early. You know, so it's a different way of life. But I think the social aspects in terms of family, so different from Dubai, because everyone's in the same situation. Everyone's an expat, so everyone's kind of looking for friends, if that makes sense. Whereas in New York, people are kind of even the mates that you make when they're there, they've already been there 3 years. They've kind of got their own circle of friends outside of that, you know. So you know, it was difficult in the sense that sometimes you want to make friends, but you know, you're kind of tacking into other people's, and then obviously you've got the missus at home, and it's kind of like, for me it was,
So what is it like working in New York? Like the actual reality of it? Because like it's so easy to sort of make it look amazing or things, do you know what I mean? Like, what is it actually like?
So I think for me, New York is what you make of it, you know. And I think if I'd have gone over there being a young single lad, it'd probably be a completely different story. I may even still be there, but I mean, if you want the honest truth, once the novelty wears off that you live in New York, you might as well just be here. You know, I think with the greatest respect, it was, you know, I think the thing people ask me all the time, do you prefer Dubai or New York?
Yeah.
And every time I'd say Dubai, 100%, really? Because it's a different lifestyle. It's a different way of living. What you get over there, you can't get here in the UK. Whereas in New York, it's just a really big city, you know. So it's kind of, once the novelty's worn off, you're walking down Fifth Ave to your office, and there's the Rockefeller. Once you're kind of over that after a few weeks, it's kind of like you're just in another city, you know. So it's very similar to the UK in many respects. Yeah,
sure. That makes sense. Can you make more money there? Like, what was your experience with the fees and all that? Because obviously you hear all the time now, 30% fees, all that good stuff. Like, what was your experience with that?
Yes. Look, there's no doubt. The country's bigger. There's more volumes of business. You know, the the roles are higher paid, so the salaries are higher. Yeah, the fees are higher. For me, when I was there, I was really shocked at how open everyone is to speak to recruiters.
Yeah, that was my next point.
I think, come from a contract background, calling people in Chester, for example, where you're hammering the phone, just trying to get someone to listen to you. And over there, even if they're not interested, they'll still give you the
connect.
Yeah.
That's on a network.
They'll still give you the time of day to kind of say your spiel, which you don't really get here, if I'm honest, often. So yeah, I think you can definitely make more money there.
Yeah, so the perception of recruiters, which I've heard a lot now, is totally different. People are open to taking a phone call. 100%. People willing to listen. Mm-hmm. It's interesting, mate. And then I guess just to wrap all of that up, mate, again, if I'm listening right now, I have the opportunity to go to New York, what should I be thinking about, mate?
So again, I'd say 100% the business, because I think naturally, as you'll know, there's been an absolute influx of recruitment, UK-based recruitment companies flowing out to the US for a piece of the pie. So I think business and the cultural aspect of that is massively important. You probably don't want to be, if you're on your own, you probably don't want to be going to an all-American, search firm where everyone's got their own families and lives. That'd be 100% something I'd be considering. And then just little things, mate, like where do you live? Like
where did you live? Was it grim?
So when I first went out there, I spent 6 weeks in a Airbnb in Williamsburg, which is Brooklyn. So that's kind of like it's supposed to be like I guess the northern quarter of Manchester. Like the hippie, trendy, quirky place. And then we actually moved over to Hoboken, which is across the water. So it's theoretically New Jersey. Okay. That was a little bit more family orientated. You get bigger space, more for your money, stuff like that.
Really, so where he lives, key.
I think where you live's key, because naturally, most people, especially if they're single, they want to go out there and they want to live in the heart of it. Absolutely, I would. But the reality is that you're probably going to pay at least $1,000 a month to share an apartment with someone. So
some money.
It's expensive, man.
Yeah. Okay, mate. And then came back, and then you've ended up at Lawrence Harvey, and you've been here for how many months now? Did you say?
18 months.
18. So how many times have you switched industry? I feel like you've changed sector. I mean, how many times?
Started in tech and BI. Moved out to Dubai probably about 6 weeks before the oil and gas price crashed. Yeah. To do oil and gas. So we kind of spun that around and did more kind of engineering type stuff. So I guess
different again.
Went to America was life sciences,
different,
and then back into tech. Yeah, so I think, look, mate, for me, and everyone asks me this question all the time, like,
how have you done that? How have you adapted? How have you changed?
And I think that the answer for me all the time is, look, recruitment's recruitment. You're going to be speaking to slightly different types of people. There's certain, there's different subtle nuances within each market, but the reality is that recruitment's a process. So if you can nail that, and that probably. I probably say that because I was just drilled with process when I was taught, from the SThree days. Yeah. So the process for me remains pretty consistent. I think it's just probably having a certain element of adaptability. If you're speaking to a vice president of a US pharmaceutical company, or you're speaking to, I don't know, a French electrical engineer who works in Qatar, Algerian, in your case, it's is what it is. You're speaking to different people. You just need to be able to, I guess, adapt to that situation and understand how to get on a level, really.
Okay, mate. And then, so now how many people do you manage?
So we've got a team of 5 at the minute.
Okay. So a few things, mate, before we get to the end. Firstly, how have you done billings-wise, mate, in your career?
Billings-wise, good, mate. So I think I was lucky because so I got at SThree, my contract book kind of topped out about 8k a week, which is all right, decent, I guess. Certainly, I wasn't up there with some of the top billers, but I guess it was at that point that I moved over to Dubai. So I was pretty lucky that I still had a contract book running in the UK,
decent,
in tech, and then I could build a new contract book again from scratch. So I think I got to about 6k with that. So you look at it on paper and it's 14 grand a week contract book, that's pretty good going. But if I'm being honest, most people don't have the opportunity to do that across 2 brands and 2 industries. You know, so would I have ever gotten to 14 grand a week in tech doing what I was doing? Probably not.
Sure. What about more recently then? Like, because are you still billing?
I'm still billing, yeah. So I think we've had a bit of a change in strategy, really. So, you know, I love the BD element of it.
Yeah. Obviously, so you're really client focused.
Very client focused. Obviously, I'm a contract background, so the candidate piece is probably more of a challenge for me in terms of.
Would you do a lot of splits?
So we do splits. I guess the strategy when I first came in was, look, I'll go and win as much work as we need, and we can take.
Get people to deliver.
And I'll dish that out to the team, and the business is making money. I'm making money. They're making money. Everyone's happy. I guess that worked to an extent, but I guess we're at a point now where if I'm honest, we've probably got too much work to deliver on. So I've been much more hands-on, active, back in that space again. So we had a tough start to the year. You know, I think we had. We started Lawrence Harvey last summer. So the first, you know, again, I didn't do a deal. So brand new market, brand new geography. I didn't do a deal till month 4 or 5.
Really?
You know, so even though how many experience you've got, you know, it still takes time. And I think that's one thing I always say with people is hold your nerve. You know, I think people are very quick to, there is no market here, and move on. And the reality is there is a market. You just need to establish yourself a little bit in it. So. So I guess the first 6 months were very much around building a bit of a reputation for ourselves. Naturally, we've started to increase headcount. So over time, that's, you know, this year has been was slow at the start. Q3 we had a record quarter. Billings wise, this year has been very good. So a couple of big deals, big retained deals come off for me. Like trying to get involved in some retained type projects. So
how have you found that?
Interesting.
How have you positioned that? Like, why? Do you know what I mean? Because like, there's definitely going to be more people going to be wanting to do more of that.
So I think it's down to the market that you work a lot of the time. But you know, I guess what we've got in Manchester in terms of data, you know, so we typically place data scientists, data engineers, data architects as 3, or then some kind of more senior heads of type roles. And I guess we've been quite selective in the clients that we want to go and work with, because, to be honest with you, there's more demand than there is supply. I didn't want to spread ourselves too thin across too many
rather
clients.
Have some really solid relationships. Because at the end of the day, if you've got a decent data scientist, you're going to be able to place them.
To be honest, mate, the market is so buoyant here at the moment for that. You know, we get a good candidate, we can put them into 3 or 4 clients. We'll get 3 or 4 interviews. We'll probably get 3 or 4 offers. So it's kind of like, it's almost counterintuitive to have more clients. You know,
spread yourself in.
We've been trying to get in with businesses that are on, I guess, the start of a trajectory in terms of building a data team from scratch. So we've had a few good wins with that, and we just kind of position it as, look, you know, we're a specialist data science recruitment business. That's all we focus on here, on the ground in Manchester. And we know our stuff and we know the market, you know, so and that's kind of got us most of the way, if I'm being honest. And you know, there's a few businesses that we're working with now where they're building teams from scratch and they pay us like a monthly retainer.
And is that because you said, look, we understand the challenges that come with building a team. Obviously the problem that we can solve is that you can have a dedicated resource that's going to build this team, understand your culture, blah blah blah, and then I guess it's something. Obviously, there's still expectations you've got to hit, which are challenging, but that means then that person that's giving you X retainer per month means that that team's that's sorted, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so,
that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this one example, you know, they're a relatively new business, a tech startup, if you will. You know, they're hiring across the board. They've got their own internal recruitment team, as you'd expect, but they're hiring for everything across the whole business. You know, so they've kind of
hard for them to focus.
Yeah, exactly, and especially when it's such a candidate-driven market, and it's, you know, most of what we do is going headhunting candidates, because no one's really actively looking. They don't need to be looking because they're getting contacted 10, 15 times a day by recruiters, I'm sure. So, you know, for us, it was just a case of, look, you got to trust us with this. You know, and you get more by operating on a retained project type model.
Get more dedicated resource.
More dedicated, you know, you can get first dibs on all candidates, you know, because on a contingent model, don't worry, I'd send the candidate to you, but I'm also sending him to, you know, 2 or 3 other clients and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. Two things, mate, that I'm thinking about, which I think people want to know more about. You sound like a business development machine, mate.
I might be stretching it, mate.
No, but all I mean by that is like, you sort of say it off the cuff, like 6 months didn't make a deal, really, I'll get in the work, blah, blah, blah. Do you know what I mean? So like now you're managing people, stuff like that. You mentioned process. You mentioned about your experience and obviously having the events that's really helped. But I guess just to sort of give like, I guess just finalise some key pointers on that, like the business development piece. Like what sort of processes have you helped sort of implement in your team and stuff like that you think have brought them more success, which has worked for you? Do you know what I mean? What does some of these processes look like? Just because I think, mate, like clearly you know how to do it and you've done it quite well, but it's been a journey with it. Like, do you know what I mean? Anything just to wrap that up, because it seems like you've just done really well with that, and I think that's what a lot of people struggle. Yeah,
so I think, we've had a focus on these events because they've been a success, and even now when I'm speaking to clients about them, I'm quite honest in the fact that it's probably snowballed into something bigger than I ever thought it would be. So, like, we have people that are based in the team that focus on a specific geography, for example. So I've said, look, go and have the same conversations, just like replicate that whole event piece, because naturally, it obviously works. Clients are interested in speaking to you about it because it's slightly different, and I think that's, if there's anything that I'd say nowadays, I say to the guys all the time, and it's a bit cheesy, but about kind of trying to be a celebrity in your market. Not like David Beckham celebrity type of status, but just be someone that people know, because I think that for me I've had so many referrals and introductions of other clients.
That was going to be my next thing. What's the actual benefit? Why should recruiters be aiming for that?
So I think, there's so many referrals, introductions. I mean, we held our 4th event of what's like become a series. We're holding our 5th one at the end of the month up in Edinburgh. But I was looking around the room and we held it last week. And I think as recruiters, people often, we're salespeople, right? So there's an element of, you want to get something back from every single thing in terms of a tangible result. And I think what I've realised is that, I was sat around the room and I was looking, there was 18 people around that room, and there was probably only 4 or 5 of them that are actually our clients.
Really?
But all the rest of them, I'd like to think, if we went to them, or someone independent went to them and said, who's a go-to data recruiter in Manchester? I'd like to think they'd probably say us because of that. So it's not always about getting the tangible result there and then. I'm pretty confident that further down the line there'll be things that open up for us.
I think, and if you're serious about the events, you can't just have that mindset, because it will mean that some of the decisions, you'll be more prone to making cheated decisions that mean the event's not as great. But has it made you more money?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
I mean, that, to be honest with you, that's been our kind of sole singular strategy to putting deals on the board.
Mate, I love that, just because there'll be so many people, that make the assumption that events have been done. There's too many of them. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's wicked, mate. That's happened, and so many people make the assumption that you can't make money out of it because everyone's done it. The other thing I just wanted to, I'd love to get your thoughts on, mate. Again, clearly shown it throughout your career. You said about give it enough time in terms of the market and stuff like that. I think you said earlier on around like just sort of who you are and the way you're made, but I'm assuming now you're having to cultivate more resilience in your people and tell them to be patient and these types of things. Like, what's your journey been like with resilience, and how have you got better at cultivating that in yourself but also your team?
I think for me that's just come naturally. That's more of a characteristic of me as a person. But look, I think that's a challenge for a lot of recruiters, and especially, I think what is a challenge is, naturally we've got people in our office, for example, that they're all at different levels. So you've got someone sat there that might have been in the business 3 or 4 months. They're very talented, they're doing all the right things, they're not seeing results, and they look across the room and someone's maybe working in a slightly different market who's getting a lot of results. And
especially in quite a small environment, it is tough to see that.
It's funny, because when I was thinking about this the other day, it was kind of like, you were kind of told and trained at SThree that market's irrelevant. The market doesn't matter. If it's failing, it's because of you. And I think, look, there's a certain element of that, but I think for me, it's like I said before, like, you've got to hold your nerve with stuff. But in terms of resilience, I don't. Even when I joined Lawrence Harvey, I'm 6 months in. We'd only done a couple of placements in data, and I'm sat there. I'm speaking to my boss and trying to justify what we're doing. And even then, I'm kind of saying to him, like, look, I'll be honest, mate, I'm kind of on the fence here. And he was saying, like, look, just keep doing what you're doing. If you feel that there's a market there. You just got to go and figure it out.
Is there anything in your day that you do that helps with that or not? I don't know. Is there anything that you do on a daily basis that, besides obviously dressing like you're going to Blackpool, which can help, but like, is there anything that you, I don't know, just out of interest, is there anything that...
What, with resilience?
Yeah, just like, is there anything that is it become like a bit of a daily practice that you do or anything, or not really?
I don't think it's a conscious thing, mate.
Really? Fair.
Really?
I just thought that might be interesting if you had any... anything that you do.
Like a ritual.
Yeah.
A hacker or something. No, to be honest, I don't, personally for me, I don't think it's a conscious thing. I think it's become a conscious thing for me from a management perspective to try and encourage others.
Still and encourage.
And I think that, to be honest with you, one of my biggest flaws is that's just not my personality. So that's something that I've had to work on extremely hard over the years. If someone makes a good call, me 5 years ago, I'm like, that's your fucking job. Right, you know what I mean? And I think I probably learned how to manage people in completely the wrong way through trial and error by giving the opportunity at SThree to manage people, because it was kind of like, I was doing really well. I was getting myself into that crowd of top billers within the office, and it was kind of like, if people kind of said, oh, why do we do this? And it was kind of like, because I just told you to, that because it works, obviously. Whereas obviously now it's kind of just relaying the benefits to them and encouraging, that call was wicked, but specifically what you said there, make sure you do that again and again and again.
So what, have you just had to naturally go on that journey, or have you had some help with that, or?
100% had out with that. So obviously we do like management courses that I've been on and stuff, and I'd say that that's certainly not a kind of natural strength of mine. But I've had to work on trying to have that at the front of my mind. I think it's difficult sometimes because I'm still there, hands on, headphone on, speaking to clients and stuff. So it is difficult to kind of be understanding everything that's going on around us. But
how do you structure your day to enable that you can spin all these plates and keep on top of them?
So obviously we do kind of daily plans. I think it's about understanding that the team know what they're doing. But for us, we like to try and give them as much autonomy as possible. We kind of say, look, we're here for as much guidance and support as you need. But make sure if you need it, you ask us. Don't just sit there kind of failing.
Have you had to get better at? A lot of people have said before in the management piece where like, they had to make it where, like, if I'm in your team right now, that I can just come up to you and disrupt your day at any point, even though it's probably something I could work out myself. Like, if you had to get, I don't know if you've done anything where it's like between 12 and 1, you can ask me and like I'll give you my full attention, unless it's like really important. You know what I mean?
So I think that depends on the environment you're in and where you're at, where you're up to as a business at that level. Because I think naturally we've got quite a few people that are still very inexperienced. So for me at this point, it's a case of, look, I'd rather you come and ask me so I can correct. If you need something correcting, I can do it now, as opposed to you spending 2 hours doing something in the wrong direction.
Yeah, fair enough.
But obviously prior, where I've managed teams of experienced people, there's been times like, look, unless it's business critical, I'm involved in something. I guess to the point where often, a look could kill. You kind of get a Kyle, and, straight away, like, not now type of thing.
Now,
but,
fair enough.
I think I've got a more relaxed and, the more experienced I've got, I think I've just probably chilled out an awful lot as well.
So as we finish, mate, I think you through your experiences and the different types of things that you've seen in your career, like what do you think recruiters now have to do to stay relevant? Obviously, you mentioned about being a celebrity in your market and stuff, but like, how do you see this planning out? Do you know what I mean? How do you see you and your guys staying relevant in your market over the next sort of 5 to 10 years?
So I think recruitment, there's cycles, right? I think that's always going to happen, but I think being able to build a bit of a personal brand, and network and relationships. I think for me, it's just about. I say to the guys all the time, like, look, we're sitting down this afternoon to go through like a client strategy piece. I'm probably guilty of being too involved in that type of strategic stuff. I quite like that, right? Who are we going after? Why are we going after them? How are we going to do it? How are we going to engage them? How are we going to be different? But I think for me, that's what's worked. So I guess that's where, you know, I try to pass my experience on. But I think, you know, to answer your question, it's about how do you stand out from the crowd, because there's so much noise, you know,
especially in tech, mate. Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, look, every tech recruiter now is, you know, they've added data on as something else they do, and naturally, why wouldn't you? There's a massive market for it. But you know, so for me, it's around, well, how do we keep getting that message out that this is just what we do, and we're really specialist at it. And I think obviously the events have helped position us as, I guess, that authority figure to a certain extent. But look, you know, there's so much more stuff that we can be doing, hence why we spoke in the first place, right?
Yeah,
so
that's fair enough, mate. Okay, cool. Something that I've always been asking people recently, just because I've got a lot of messages about it recently, and then I'll ask you the final question, mate. What counter offers? What's been your experience in the last 12 or so months? Has there been more of those? Have you been experiencing more of those as a team? Because I've got loads of messages about it recently. Everyone that I've asked, they've said, you know what, they'd definitely be more prevalent. Have you had any experiences that you've sort of noticed or picked up on that there's been more, or?
I think there has, thinking about it, there probably has been a little bit more. But again, I think for me, that just goes down to being very meticulous about the process. So we address that like day dot. When we're speaking to them, all right, you've got an interview booked in. Okay, all right, look, if this goes well, what do you reckon the chances are getting a counter offer? Okay, well, would that need to look like something specific for you to consider it? You know, so we try and address that very early. But I'd say most of the deals we've done, naturally, you do get a counter. I think it depends on the market. Obviously, our sister brand, Harper Harrison, they work in the real estate and property space. You know, like QS and commercial type stuff. It seems to be very prevalent. In that space.
The go-to advice, and I've said this a few times now, is like, but candidate, 80% of people, they want to quit after.
You've got all that spiel, and
you know what I mean. But a lot of people said it's like you need to really address that early on. First conversation, like, have you spoken internally? What could they do is there anything they could do to make you stay? Blah blah blah. Because sometimes you can't do anything about it, but I guess it's a matter of you being able to look in the mirror and go, was I meticulous? Did I ask the right questions? Did I not?
Yeah.
Is that your advice then, in terms of?
I mean, that's my advice, mate. You know, you can say everything that you need to say and you've been trained to say when you get to that point, if you're trying to battle a counter offer at that, you know, at the 12th hour. But I think, you know, if you've tried to mitigate as much risk as you can prior to that happening, then it's less likely to happen, I'd say. But yeah, I think for us, that's one of the reasons why we try to work with certain types of clients that probably got a bit more of a cooler, compelling story. They're doing cool stuff, you know, so it's kind of like, look, mate, you're working at company X, company A are doing this.
I think as well, when you've got that type of sort of retained relationship, or you've got a better relationship with a client, that's something you should be communicating to them, that look, counter offers are becoming more prevalent at the moment. This isn't just down to me to prevent that or make sure that they understand. Do you know what I mean? I think that's also down to the sort of communication and relationship with the client, to say, look, how can we work together to ensure that we're giving the most sort of competitive or the most appetizing offer for these people?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
I think that's, you know, when you get into those types of relationships where, you know, people are paying you for a service before you've even delivered that service, you do, you know, as cheesy as it sounds, you do almost become like an extension of that business. They take your advice seriously, you know. So we've had instances where, you know, feedback has been slower than we need it to be, and you know, I've been able to go in there and say, look, you already paid us for this, so I'm only trying to help you, but here's what you need to do to be able to, you know, attract better talent. Because if you're going to take X amount of time to come back on feedback on the CVs or the interviews, the reality is you've got competition in the market that are wrapping three-stage interviews up inside a week with an offer. And
this is the experience that you're giving the candidates. That's what's not beneficial.
Exactly.
Nice, mate. So what are you excited about, mate, before we finish? What's going on it's clearly an events organiser.
So we've obviously, from a business perspective, we've got another event up in Edinburgh,
nice.
Which one of my teams actually kind of run and sorted.
Really?
So that's been pretty cool to see. We was up in Edinburgh earlier in the week, kind of putting the
What's it like
finishing
up there?
touches.
I've heard
Beautiful.
it's really, I haven't actually been.
You've not been? Yeah, it's
No.
quality. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, it's really good.
Nice.
Really nice, yeah.
So obviously got you when you're going to Blackpool?
When we're going to Blackpool? So the 6th of December.
Buzzing.
Yeah. Yeah.
What else? And so like obviously I'm assuming what you guys hiring or what's the crack?
Yeah, hiring, at the minute. So I mean we're on now this is our fourth office in 12 months. So
we work.
Yeah, but we've moved around. So we was in Spinning Fields, they didn't have room for us there to move, so we went to St. Peter's Square and twice in there and then to here. So
I like working in a WeWork. The novelty wears off, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But I think the office space is nice.
Yeah, it's decent here.
It's certainly an element of attraction to especially more junior people that are coming in. When you're telling them that you get your morning coffee and your beer's free, it's
decent.
Probably adds an extra $5,000 onto the salary, right? At least that's how I spin it. So yeah.
Nice, mate. Well, look, question I always ask people to finish this off, mate, is if you could communicate to every recruiter out there, they'd listen to your advice, they'd take it on. It could be a phrase, sentence. What springs to mind, mate? If you could, if Kyle could get into the minds of all the recruiters out there, mate.
I think that's probably changed over time. But if there's one thing that I would say now to any recruiter that's listening is think about how you're trying to stand out and be different.
Be a celebrity. Be the David Beckham of your market.
Yeah. That's going to come back to bite me, though, isn't it? Yeah.
Kyle, it's been a pleasure, mate. Thank you.
No worries, mate.